Steph Land, welcome to the Underground Society podcast. How are you?
Man, I don't even know how to answer that. Look what I'm wearing.
I didn't know originally that you were from Canada.
So I'm right outside of Montreal, base capital of the world. Denver, we beat you.
You said the environment's always changing.
I don't want to ask. I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm doing.
How do you keep yourself educated and up to date as it continues to change and evolve?
Using ChatGPT. AI kind of freaks me out a lot. Anyways, we're not going to get into that one.
Getting into managing and co-managing, I guess, with Shay, what is kind of the biggest thing that you've learned or taken from working with him?
Sometimes I just want to sit, which isn't always the best thing.
I can really tell that you take the time to develop that relationship first with your artist before you even talk about business.
I find it easier to work with someone if you get along with them. It's like, what am I doing well? What am I doing wrong? What do you want me to improve on? But it's hard sometimes being friends with people, especially when it comes to letting people go. That's never easy, but I've been really fortunate to, have a bunch of great people that I've worked with and who are still friends to this day.
Steph Land, welcome to the Underground Society podcast. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic. Yeah, welcome back, actually, because we tried to record one time already, and my internet, I didn't realize they were doing service on my internet, so we were actually unable to do that. So I'm glad we are finally here, and we are actually finally recording.
We made it.
I wanted to start off kind of where you're from. I didn't know originally that you were from Canada.
Yes, I am.
Because I've met you here in the States, and I've seen you in person at Lost Lands and in Denver, and stuff like that. But I didn't know you were from Canada. So, where are you at in Canada? And what was it like growing up there, as far as music and stuff?
So I'm right outside of Montreal. I'm currently in about half an hour out of Montreal, off the island. It's a little quieter out here than in the city, so I like that. I grew up maybe 15 minutes from downtown area. It's called the West Island. It's just obviously a little west of the island. And it was great. I mean, I've always been musically inclined. I've always loved music, loved going to shows, but it wasn't until I would say 2012 that I really got into EDM out here. And I didn't even know that we had all these crazy events. And then one of my friends was like, let's go to a New Year's rave. So we ended up going, and I fell in love with the scene.
It's always New Year's. I feel like the people who don't rave are a lot of times get the introduction at the New Year's parties because there's so many of them.
Yeah, it was actually really, really cool. I got to see Avicii and Alesso.
Oh, lucky.
Yeah, it was actually an unreal show. It's one that I'll always remember. And it was really cool. And it kind of just got me in the scene. And we have a really, really big bass community out here, which obviously I love dubstep and bass music. So it was very easy to kind of integrate myself into that world and find people who liked it and be able to go to more and more shows and stuff. So I think, I love being in Montreal. I adore it. Everyone's always surprised that I'm from here. I'm like, yep, I'm out here in Maple Land, away from everyone, but still doing the thing. So
I've been to Canada once and loved it, but I did not go to the Montreal side. I actually went to Calgary. One of my buddies in middle school was from Calgary. His grandparents still live there and everything. I love Canada. I want to go back super bad.
You should come to
but
Montreal.
I would love to go to Montreal because of the EDM stuff,
The bass capital of the world.
Yeah.
The world.
Yeah.
Denver, we beat you.
Denver's I see, and when I saw you in Denver, that's the only time I've really ever been there for music. I've flown in there and done other stuff in Denver, but that was really the only time I was there for music. And just even that night that we were there was 7 clubs going on at the same time, all having bass music parties. I was like, if Montreal's better than this, then I don't even know what to expect.
Listen, I've had some great experiences in Denver, don't get me wrong. There's just something about the crowds here, especially for bass music and dubstep, and the crowd energy is always just so good. And I travel a lot, I do festivals, I do shows, I do all these things, and I've never found something quite like it. I always find myself being like, this isn't what it's like at home, which is great, don't get me wrong, but there's just really something about the energy. And one of my friends actually works for Headbangers to Quebec, and she was trying to prove that we are the bass capital of the world, not just in Canada. And there's so many artists that have literally been listen, Denver is the bass capital of the US, but Montreal wins the world. And I'm just yes.
Yes. We win.
We win. Well, I would think so, but pretty close.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to ask kind of follow-up question to this, but I guess I could probably already answer it myself. But have you ever thought about moving to LA or any other place for work, and why have you not?
Why have I not? Visa stuff, mostly, to be honest. And financially, it's just a little bit more expensive, the areas that I'm looking to move into the States. I love my free healthcare out here, not gonna lie. Like, not having to worry if
Yeah, dude, I
something
just turned
happens.
26 and just got kicked off my parents, and I'm like in between having healthcare right now. I'm like, man, I hope nothing happens, because luckily in Canada you get free healthcare though, right? Everyone does.
I mean, it's not the best healthcare. Like, I'm not gonna lie, the waiting is crazy, and we have our own like issues in the medical world here. But at least I know, like, if there's really something and I'm like worried and I need to go check, it's not gonna break the bank. I could just go see my doctor. I'm lucky enough to have a family doctor out here that's available every Thursday, so you just have to schedule in time with him.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so there's a lot of reasons why I love Canada and I'd love to stay here. I think I want to eventually buy a home out here for sure, but I would love to go live in the States for maybe 1 or 2 years, just get some networking done, experience what it's like out there. And especially if I start touring more with acts, so much more affordable for me to just fly within the US than to come back to Canada and go back every time and then have to do customs, and it's a whole thing.
How does that work? I've talked to a lot of artists who are not from the United States, and I know how that works for an artist. But if you're the manager, how does that work for you? Do you still have to get a visa to come out here? Or?
Yes. So as a tour manager, I would have to 100%. As a manager, no, because the scope of my work is done here in Montreal.
Got
right?
it. Okay. So there's just like, oh, I'm just visiting because someone's playing that.
Exactly.
You're, like,
and like, that's it. Like, I'm obviously going to help out if I'm there. Like, I'm there. You know what I mean? Especially if it's one of my artists playing, but I'm not doing per se like all the work there. Like, what I do is before getting there, like, I do all the advancing for the show and all the planning and all that. So it's okay. But if I do want to go and start actually tour managing, which is my goal, I'm doing it a lot here in Canada. I've had a few opportunities here and there, but again, it was more so like, I'm just here with the artist, making sure they're okay, but I'm not, like, I don't get paid if I go out to do anything in the States right now.
I don't know who's going to be listening to this, but there is a little bit of a loophole that you could take with that.
Like, yes and no. I mean, for me, it's just like, I literally just don't do any paid work in the US. I don't even do like work. Like, I don't consider it work when I'm there with my artists. I just love taking care of them and making sure everyone's okay. It's,
you might tell your family and friends, oh, I got work stuff tonight, but you're really just hanging out.
I mean, it's work stuff. You know what I mean? It is technically work stuff, but like, am I actively working and making money while there? No, it happens beforehand. But it's one of those things you have to be careful with. That is true,
because you're getting paid. You're getting paid on the back end, so you're really the work that you are getting paid for. You're exactly right. You are doing that work at home at your desk or whatever. Yeah.
Yep. And like, even if I go travel to the US, technically I'm not allowed to do my job, because then I'm working from an area in the US.
Is there any like enforcement of that? Like, do they catch you? Like, how could they catch you?
I mean, that's kind of like really, really difficult, I guess. But one of the ways is, if, let's just say I apply for a visa one day and they're doing like a background check to see like, has she come and worked in the States and has she done anything? They could see like, hey, like, you made this amount this month, yet you were in LA the whole month. How did you make money while you were there? Type thing. So I'll usually, like, the time that I'm there, like, I obviously still do work from my computer and stuff, but I don't charge anyone while I'm out there. So I kind of just like adapt in that way, because I'm not like doing work in the States, but it's such like a very thin gray line that's like a little bit confusing, and it's a lot of work to be able to go work out there. Like, you Americans could just literally come here. Like, you have to do nothing. You literally need to just prove that you have a contract and you're welcome in to come perform. So I'm just like, why can't it be that easy for us? But
Interesting. You mentioned something earlier. You said one of your goals is to get into more the tour management side. And I was curious of why, since for me, I think the opposite. I'm like, tour management is like, yeah, I'm going to help whatever. But like, my end goal is actually like actual like day-to-day manager. Why are you more in favor of that instead?
A lot of reasons, plain and simple. Like, from the get-go, I just love being at the live events. I love going to events anyways. I'm often going to just support friends and stuff. So I was like, why not make some money while doing this? I'm also just fascinated by how everything works. Like, for a show, I don't think people understand how much goes into it, from like the production side to like getting the stages up to like all the communication that happens between people, the tech, and all that. And I've always been someone who's very, very organized, and I love keeping track of things. Even when I go somewhere with my friends, I'm like, hey guys, like, we have this at 8:30, like, let's go do things. I tried to be a bit more laid back, but I'm often pretty planned out.
Yeah.
So
Which is good though. That's what the artists rely on. You're not, as an artist, if you can delegate that to someone else and just kind of go and have a free mind and have fun and let someone else worry about the scheduling of things, that's a huge help.
That's it. I just don't like seeing my artist friends being stressed out at these events and not knowing where to get their stuff and asking whoever they
Especially
can,
if they're
you
from
know?
they're from out of town or all that too, transportation and stuff. That's a huge thing. Yeah.
Exactly. I actually do some transportation out here in Montreal. So a lot of artists will either request me personally or the companies will outsource me. But I do transpo, I do artist liaison, which to me is kind of like tour management to a certain extent because I do get all their advance information and I'm the one making sure with the promoter, like, hey, do they have this? Okay, their set time is this, letting them know when they're almost done, kind of asking them, hey, do you need me to tell anything to your media? Like communicating with people. I'm still doing that when I do the artist liaison work. So it's pretty similar in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like a from a different perspective or a different point of view almost, but same like team kind of.
I mean, it's not like technically when I do the artist liaison stuff, they're like, just get the artist here, make sure they're happy. But it's just stronger than me to just be like, hey, like,
Yes.
do you want a
Especially
5
when
minutes
you
heads
have
up? Do
tour
you need
management.
water?
Yeah. Yeah. I always ask this question to everyone because I'm always curious, but like what got you into music and why did you choose this? I mean, other than it being like one of the most fun careers, in my opinion, what kind of started your path?
Well, there was that show that I was telling you about before in 2012, which is what got me into EDM as a whole, but I didn't know that I wanted to work in it at this point.
How long before you start this, how long did it take for you to realize that like, okay, I love, I want to do this more in my free time and as, your hobby or whatever, how long did it take to get from that point to now we're working in the industry? Because for me, it was probably about 6-ish years.
Yeah, it took me about 3, I would say, because I went to that show in 2012. Yeah, 2012, and then maybe a bit more because I met someone. Well, in 2015, I went to a show and these artists were performing. I went super early to go support the locals and just see what was going on. And I was mesmerized. Like it was a duo called Frat House at the time, and I was just amazed by their set. So I went up to them. I was like, hey, let's get a picture together. Like, I want to talk to you. And they were so happy because I was the first person to ever ask them for a picture, and they were super excited. And one of the guys in that duo, you might know as Mad Doe, who I did manage as well. So me and him just became friends. Like we started talking and I would go support him because I loved his music. And I think
Very good producer. I love his music too.
He's amazing, very, very talented. And I think it was 2016 or 2017. We had been hanging out and I went over, we were all hanging out and I was like, let's dig through your old stuff, like your old music. And at the time he was doing house and I landed on this dubstep track and I was like, dude, like this is next level good, And I was like, we should start an alias. So it was you who
inspired him to...
I mean, kind of like we were a few people and we were all like super vibing to it, but I was like, this is special. Like there's something different here. And he was like, I'll make a dubstep alias if you manage me. And I laughed. I was like, me? Like, I don't know anything about management, And he was like, well, figure it out. He's like, that's the only way I'm doing it. So he actually he went to school at like a production school here and they teach you a bit of the business side of music.
Right.
And he was like,
kind of like Icon-ish.
Very similar.
Yeah.
And he was like, here's my notes from all my courses that I did in business. Here, learn. And I was like, alrighty. So yeah, that's basically how it like all started. So in 2015, like 3 years later was when I kind of knew, but it took a year or two to like have someone kind of give me that opportunity for me to be like, okay, this is real. I could do this type thing.
I just thought it was super cool that you actually like took his workbooks and stuff and actually like the self-education part. Cause like a lot of people like, it's a very like, you don't really know where to start when you don't know anything. You know what I mean? Like that's one of the factors that you need to figure out first is like, how do I even start? Like where do I begin?
Yep.
And the self-education thing.
Out, to be honest.
Yeah. The self-education thing, like not too many people, I don't think go that direction. Like, especially because like things like even like reading material like that, the way you did it, because it's so, a lot of information is like you can just use Google or use YouTube or like go that route. And you actually like took the time to like sit down and like go through material and like go through coursework. That's just like, I think that's really what helped you and helped propel you into what you do now.
100%. Yeah. Even in school, I was just always one of those people. It's like I could listen in class and I was a good student, but I did my best learning from just like reading something over and understanding it for myself. So
that's how I was too.
Yeah. So
Yep.
this was just kind of like, I love learning. So like I have a bunch of books, like I don't just like read like stories before bed. I'll read stuff on like marketing or like I just enjoy learning, and I do online courses all the time. Just to like keep my brain going and to learn new things and different methods, and things are changing every year. So it was like an easy thing for me to just be like, you know what, this is just like taking an extra course, and I'm just going to focus on this for like the next few months instead of learning a million different things. I just really stayed kind of centered and focused on learning what I need to do to be a good manager.
Right, right. You just said something that I wanted to touch on. That you said the environment's always changing, which I couldn't agree more with. How do you keep yourself educated and up to date as it continues to change and evolve?
A lot of ways. I try to keep up to date with like the big publications and vlogs and stuff like that. I think that's like always a good source. Even podcasts, like anything that's coming out in the music industry, it's just always good to get people's opinions, perspectives. Spotify also does all these really cool things through Spotify for artists that you could sign up for. And they basically like, it's teaching, like it's workshops and seminars, and they're like super short. Usually it's about half an hour, and they're free, like completely free. So whenever I get an
Interesting.
email
I'm gonna
invite,
get into that. That's
they're
interesting.
really
I would love
cool.
to. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I've done some really cool ones, and they have a lot of special guests come in. Sometimes they're like musicians, sometimes they're managers, label heads, like a little bit of everything. So I learn a lot through that. There's also like the music Bible, the Donald Passman book, which is where I learned probably the most ever. But they do a new edition every year. And I just found out, so there's an edition that came out literally 1 or 2 days ago. I think it's the 11th. And they integrated more social media stuff now, which they didn't have in the previous editions.
Cool.
So
Good.
exactly. So those are books that I like to reread that book pretty often. I literally keep it right next to me as like kind of a source in case I'm confused about something, especially when it comes to like contracting and stuff like that. But having this book kind of just like evolve as the times evolve has been super helpful too. But yeah, I think it's just like
I'm gonna drop that link for the Amazon link for the Passman book in the description too, so people can go check that out if they're interested.
I tell everyone that is getting into the music industry, doesn't matter which side of the industry, this explains the business. It's not a fun read. I'm not gonna lie. It's very textbook. It's very like educational. There's big words, like it's very dry, you know? And some of the stuff I even had to stop and be like, wait, let me Google. Like I have no idea what this word even is. But that's what helped me learn, is that honestly also using ChatGPT is great.
Yes, I use it a lot.
I use that all the time.
Yeah.
And even for the book. So like when there's like a paragraph that it's just not clicking, I'll type it into ChatGPT and be like, can you explain this in easier terms?
That's smart.
And
That's
then it explains it to me in a way that I'm
I feel
just
like any student in high school or college or anything, that any form of learning, like that's such a good idea.
Yeah, it's been helping me a lot like this past year, like even with like getting inspiration to help write press releases and stuff like that. When the artists are struggling with captions,
it helps me write show notes. So
for sure. Yeah, it's a useful tool. It's a little bit, AI kind of freaks me out, but I'm also like so fascinated by it. And I'm just like, you know what? Gotta hop on like what's working now, what's new. Like it's the future at the end of the day, right? So,
yeah, and good for you for diving. Good for both of us, I guess. But good for you, since we're talking about it on your end, for diving in, getting your hands dirty. Because I know a lot of people are just like scared of it, and like they just won't they won't interact with it. They won't search out solutions to their everyday activity. Like there's so many for all the different industries, not just music, that AI can assist with. So I think people need to get in there, even if it's just dipping your toes in the water, just like do something with it, even if it's just typing random shit into ChatGPT or like what you're talking about, learning and stuff. It's a very useful tool. But yes, very frightening for the way I don't know how in the next 10, 20 years how AI is going to change the world. Like I guess the next big thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It makes me feel like we're in a simulation even more.
Right.
But that's a whole other topic.
Yeah. Simulation theory. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just a lot. Anyways, we're not going to get into that one.
I want to talk about Subtle But True. You're the company that you started. What inspired you to, create this brand and create this sense of like identity for yourself and your artist that you're representing?
Yeah. So it originally started as a management company, just pure management. And I was managing, like I said, Matt Doe, who was one of my first acts. And slowly he introduced me to other local artists whose music I was like obsessed with and loved. And they kept approaching me, asking for help. And I was like, I don't know enough what I'm doing yet. I was still learning and I was scared to take on too much. But then I had...
That's kind of where I'm at right now. I have 2 artists under me and I'm just like, I don't know if I don't want to like overload my plate, especially with the podcast and stuff. It's like, I'm not 100% on everything yet. So until I feel comfortable, I totally get that. I'm very much in that space.
That's it. And I think I got lucky by finding people who were willing to grow with me. Like they did not care. They were like, we don't care that you don't 100% know everything. We just know that we like what you're doing with Matt Doe. Like we see the effort you're putting in. We like your ideas. And I used to brainstorm with them just for fun. I'd go to studio sessions and stuff. So I was just lucky that they trusted me so early on. I think we were 4 at this time. I think I had Matt Doe, Fools of Wisdom, Mike Dangles, and then Jeekwe actually hopped on not long after that as well. So that was cool. And then Dragos came on, Remedy. I had a bunch of people, but I just felt like it was like Steph and then the artist where I was like, what, like we're such a little family. Like we were all very, very close. All my artists were talking to each other, working together, helping each other. We would do group meetings. Like it wasn't just individual meetings with my artists. It was like, let's get the whole team together. Like, and I was like, it was more for feedback on everything. I was like, I want to hear from you guys. Like, what am I doing well? What am I doing wrong? What do you want me to improve on? What did you enjoy this year? What did you not? And having that team, like family atmosphere, I was like, we need an umbrella term to like bring us all together. And then we were walking around one night trying to come up with ideas for a name. And Matt had like this sweater on and it had SBTM. And we were like, that's a little too close to BTSM, But we were like doing play on words with the letters. And then Subtle But True popped up at one point, and I loved it. And we kind of just like stuck to it and kept saying it throughout the night. And SBT, Subtle But True, like, and finding reason behind it and meaning. And it just became more and more meaningful to us. And we went with it. And then here I am, I guess. So I started doing the management stuff. I think I launched the company in 2020 it was. And then I actually decided to transfer it over to something else. So that company is now mostly where I do all my tour management, artist liaison. I also offer consultations for aspiring managers or artists without management who need help. But I do that all under Subtle But True now because I've joined Shay Behboodi at Left Brain Entertainment. We work together for management there. So
very cool. Very cool. So we've talked a lot about like you learning, the trade and, getting it, you learning your career and what you need to do as a manager and stuff. But throughout the process of it, and I'm asking this question because I've grown so much with running my own business and running the podcast and running my own project and stuff. What do you think has been one of the biggest things that you've learned about yourself since starting SBT?
I feel like you asked me this last time we spoke, and I don't think my answer is the same. It might be though. I think one thing I did learn about myself was how much patience I lacked and how much I needed to work on that. I think I might have mentioned this last time. I was just someone who wanted things now. I was like, I want to answer now. I want to know the answers now. I want to do this. Like I was very, very impatient. And I've learned that you can't really be like that in this industry.
Definitely not. You have to be flexible, super flexible in this industry.
Exactly. So like just with everything, so like it was just learning to take that breath and like that step back of like, it's okay if we don't have an answer for this now, I could still move on. And I guess that kind of ties me into the next point of what I realized about myself. I have this weird thing where I need to start something on Monday or at noon or on the 1st of the month. Like I really struggle to do things like in the middle of a week or in the middle of my workday. It kind of throws me off. But I've realized in this industry, some things will just kind of happen. You could have finished something completely, and an hour later, they're like, we need you to fully redo it because we're changing this, that, and then I do have to start something in the middle of my day, or I need to start something on a Tuesday or Wednesday. And that was really hard for me at first. And I'm not sure if it's like a bit of an OCD thing or what it is, but I didn't realize that I was like that until the music industry kind of had to make me shift that perspective and not so much be like that, because sometimes you just gotta get things done. So
whether you want to call it OCD or perfectionism or whatever the term you want to use, it's so hard to be that. I have some of those traits as well. And it's so hard to be a perfectionist sometimes especially when you're running your own business in this industry, because you're working with so many different people with so many different schedules, with different sleep patterns, different, people are traveling, whatever it may be. And it's just, you have to almost be on, like, I was talking to our last guest that we just put out an episodes with. She's a manager as well. And we were talking about just like, you have to be flexible and you almost have to be on like 24/7. Like you can't fully be on, you need time off, but like you have to be like responsive at least 24/7.
I mean, to a certain extent, right? That was also something that I really went through, like fluctuations.
How do you set those boundaries for yourself?
It's hard. When I first started, and this I think was when I had like Mado and Jiquian back in the day, it was really hard for me to put boundaries because I realized that like my boundaries weren't helpful for some of the other artists. So like I would say, hey, it's 6 p.m. I'm done working. But then I had someone who was in Pacific time who they're like, well, it's only it's only 3 o'clock for me. What do you mean you're done working? But to me, it was like, I'm just trying to take time for myself in the evenings because I was so go, go, go. And then I was like, damn it, like I do maybe need to work till 8 p.m. But then some of the artists need me to start at 8 a.m. And I was just like, it was so good.
Every day.
Literally, I wasn't sleeping and I burnt out so fast. Like the first few years, I was like, not well. It's like, this is not good. But I just had to be realistic with myself. I was like, you know what? Like almost everything could wait a day. Almost, yes, there are offers that come in that are like, hey, this expires in a few hours. If we have a release that day or the next day, for sure, you kind of adapt your schedule as things come up.
Or seasonally too. If it's big festival season during the summer, you're a lot busier than during the winter. Yeah,
exactly. But for me, I was like, you know what? I need at least one Steph day. And like, this didn't start until maybe like a year ago. And I was like, I need a day where I don't have responsibilities. I don't have to go to my day job. I don't have to do music stuff. I don't have to clean my house. 100%. I don't have to do anything.
You need one day to just not do shit.
I 100% agree. Sometimes I just want to sit, Sometimes like just leave. I don't want to hear a noise. I just want to chill out. So I decided Sundays was going to be my day because most people are off on Sundays anyways. It's very rare there is a show on Sundays, right? Like it's on Saturday or Friday, if anything. And the only exception I really make to that rule of mine is if we have something huge happening Monday morning, then obviously I'll be a bit more active on the Sunday. But typically Sundays are Steph day. My artists even know, like, if you text me on a Sunday, I'm not going to answer unless it's important, obviously. I still check. But like I kind of, push it aside till the next day if I can. And just kind of having a boundary with like my sleep schedule too. I was staying up till 2, 3 in the morning all the time because stuff was coming in. And I could kind of like that thing I was talking about before, like I had to start at a certain time. I could not go to bed knowing I had something in my inbox. I couldn't do it.
Oh my goodness.
So every time something new would pop up,
problem, but that'd be intense. Oh.
I would be like sitting on my couch upstairs watching something. I hear my notification. I'd pause it. I'd run down, do my work. And then I'd be here for like an hour or two, run back upstairs. And I just realized I was like, I'm not giving myself any time to relax. So now it depends on the day. Every week I kind of adjust my schedule, but I make sure that I have at least an hour to just, eat food.
Hour before bedtime.
Relax, exactly. Like an hour before I have to get ready to go to sleep to just be myself.
I've learned the same thing where you just need that like hour at least to just like maybe turn on TV or something just to remove yourself from the work mindset. Yep. And then, disconnect, actually wind down, and then you're able to sleep. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you can. Oftentimes my head is like, don't forget to do this. But I mean, again, it's like I try to go for walks. I try to do stuff that'll like kind of distract my mind from, I love working. I love my job. Like if I wasn't tired and if my brain didn't need a break, I'd probably stay here 24/7.
One of the pitfalls of doing what you love is that you actually like what you just reiterate that, but you like what you do. So yeah, you want to do it all the time.
You can't stop. Yeah. But it's important too. It really, really is. Like I went through, actually not that long ago, I think it was in June of this year, I went through like a very severe burnout. Like I felt it coming. I knew I was tired. I just like, I couldn't take the time. And like, I was trying to, but I had so much that kept popping up on top of shows and festivals. I had releases. It was my birthday. I had a friend in town. Like there was just so much going on. And I was like, I need to listen to my body more, because if you go through a burnout like that, like I had to take days off, and I don't like doing that. Instead of just taking one day and being like, hey guys, like I need a mental health day, which now I'm much better at doing. Sometimes I just forget. Sometimes I don't realize how much like is going on and I'm not taking that time for me, but it is so important. You cannot give your 100% to something if you're not 100% yourself. There's no way.
Yeah, absolutely. Where was I going with this next? Oh, I wanted to talk about your merch line that you've kind of developed alongside the managed. What I'm blanking on. Subtle but true.
Yes.
Yeah. The merch line that you're kind of developing alongside with that. We talked a little bit about it last time we spoke, but it's basically like a merch line, or not even merch. It's a clothing line for like industry people. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So the first drop I think was in 2022, if I'm not mistaken. I put out these like half hoodies, and I put a lot of work into that. I was like, I want a good quality like sweater that looks great, but that's comfortable and that's not going to break the bank for people. And I did it through a company that was like all Canadian. Like we barely outsourced anything. We got everything made. It took months. Like it was like a long process. We had to dye the material because I wanted very specific material. I think the only thing we ended up outsourcing was like the 2 strings in the front, because we couldn't get like the distributor in Canada just had none left of the color I wanted. But those ended up doing great. Like I put them out, they sold out in like a day, which I was like amazed. And like we had a limited quantity, but I think I had made 65 of them, 50 official on sale, and I kept 15 for my friends. And I was like out within a day. And I was like, oh my goodness, you know? So people kept complimenting me, like, we love the design, it's comfortable, you should make more, you should make more. And one thing outside of music that I've always wanted to do is start a clothing line. So I was like, why don't I just start building something that's catered to not just artists, but like everyone behind the scenes? Because we do have to wear darker colors on stage, and everyone's always wearing like very plain black because you don't want like big stuff in the front here. But I was like, what if there was a subtle but true way to do it? Where like, you know, I did hats at one point just to try them out. I didn't sell those, but it was black on black. It was just a different material. So if you looked in certain lighting, you could see that there was something written, but in like a general, like on stage lighting, you can't really see it. So yeah, I'm working on that. I haven't put anything out yet. It's something that's kind of like on the back burner that I work on during like my downtime. But I do want to put out like a full line eventually that is going to have like fun little like quirky stuff, you know, that people in the music industry could relate to. And that's dark colors. So like dark blues, dark greens, like anything that we can wear backstage without like standing out like a sore thumb.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I get why we have to wear dark colors, especially if you have to get on stage for something you don't want to be distracting. But like, I think that, yeah, it's such a part of like, because of that, it's like such a part of like, even if you don't get on stage, you still show up to shows wearing black. Like you still kind of play the part, even if you're not having to get on stage. So I think it's so interesting. It's an interesting part of like our culture, I guess, for the career side of things.
I feel so out of place if I don't. And we had a Halloween party last weekend at Club Soda. It was with like Ivory and a bunch of people. It was a lot of fun, but I decided, I was like, I'm gonna be Lola Bunny. It's Halloween.
Yeah, I saw your costume on Instagram.
I was like, I look so cute. This is awesome. And then I show up and I realize my entire costume is white with big white ears. And I was like, damn. I was like, okay. And then I get backstage. Not one person backstage was like wearing, like the people in costume were wearing dark colored costumes. And I was like, damn, I messed up, you know? And so I was like hiding behind the curtains at one point, like on stage. And my friends were like, just come up. And I'm like, look what I'm wearing, you know? And they're like, who cares? Just like come hang out. So I like took my ears off, you know? I was like, I'm like a fake Lola right now, but I felt out of place. Like I felt genuinely just like weird. I don't know. Definitely funny. Wearing black the whole future.
Yeah. So getting into managing and, you know, getting into co-managing, I guess, with Shay, how did you guys meet each other, and how did that relationship develop into like you guys working together?
We met online. So Gom and Matt Doe did a collab together that landed placement on Bass Rush. So him and I kind of had to get together and start talking like release and what we wanted to do. So we were just talking on
You said
Facebook.
Through who again? Sorry, I missed that.
I think it was on Bass Rush, that release.
Got it. Yeah.
Yep. And so him and I started communicating. We already followed each other because like friends in common and music industry stuff. We knew who we were. So we started chatting there, and then they put out the collab, and we loved working together. Like I kept telling him, like, you're so easy to work with. And he's like, you too, like, this isn't a headache. Like, it's so nice. Like, we understand each other. We're coming up with great ideas. I was like, yeah. And then he ended up getting a job at like a higher management company. and he had to let go of some of his rosters. So he reached out to me and offered like, hey, do you want to take on some of my
you
roster?
took over while that happened. Okay.
Yeah. So I took over Weasley at the time. And that went great. Like we worked together for, I think, about a year and a half or so, 2 years. But it went like really well. And then he kept obviously in touch. He was like, how are things going? Do you need help? Like he was still kind of willing to help on that end because it was a lot of his team. And then him and I decided to, like the time that I went to LA, he's like, we need to meet in person. Like we've been chatting back and forth. It would be nice to actually meet you. And so we got along, like we met, we like kicked it off right away. Like just like very easy to conversate. Like we got along well, we're very similar people. And right after that, he was like telling me, he's like, listen, like I'm thinking of starting my own thing. I know you have your own thing. Maybe we could see how working together would be. And then it just so happened that as we were talking about it, Freaky reached out and sent us an email and was interested in working with us. So right then and there, we were like, should we take this on to do we do this together? And then he was the first artist that we signed together. And I was still doing my own thing. I was at Subtle But True. He was like starting his thing at Left Brain. So we had the 2 emails. But as like we kept bringing more and more artists on, we realized like this doesn't make sense to be like working together under 2 different entities. It was very difficult for me to be like, do I want to let go of Subtle But True and what I was trying to build? But I saw how easy it would be for me to just keep building that, but just in a different direction. I've gotten so involved in different facets of the industry that I was like, you know what? Like, I believe in what Shay's doing as well. We work great together. Together, we're a stronger force. We're able to bring in more people. So I'm happy to just go there and partner with him. And then, you know, I still have everything going on my end for AR and consultations and stuff, which is nice. So yeah, I love Shay. He's the best. Shay, if you're watching.
And you guys are a great team too. You know, I'm still building my relationships with certain managers and stuff, but you guys are one of the teams that I've done a lot of work with, and it's been awesome to get to know you guys and work with you guys now that you guys have also both been on the show. So
That's true. That's true.
What has been like, I guess, one of the biggest things you've learned from working with Shay then, since he was a little bit more established in his career and probably like as you were explaining, kind of your oversight while you took over for him? What is kind of the biggest thing that you've learned or taken from working with him?
Man, there's so many that come to mind. You know what? I'm a very emotional person. I lead with my emotions. I think with my emotions are big. It's not like if I'm happy, I'm real happy. If I'm sad,
I
I'm real
relate
sad.
with that so much. I agree.
And he kind of taught me. He was like, Steph, it is great to have emotion in this industry, but he's like, sometimes you need to remove that emotion to make the right business decision. And that was something I really struggled with because I was like thinking so much like, how is this person going to feel? How am I going to feel? How is this going to? And it was very feeling based, right? And he was like, there are times where like that comes in handy and that's necessary, but there are also times where you're going to influence your decision based on your emotions, which isn't always the best thing. And I've learned that both in my personal life and in the professional world. But having him kind of like tell me like, it's okay to think like that sometimes. Like you don't always have to like make sure everyone's going to feel okay. Like sometimes you have to make the best decision for your artist, even at the expense of like other things not going as great potentially. So that was a really big thing. But I think for me, just the power of teamwork.
Do you ever look back and like say like if you've delegated some of your tasks and stuff? So I'm starting to do that now with this podcast. Where I'm this first time I'm actually talking about it on the podcast, but we're bringing on a co-host going into next year and delegating some of the work. I'm starting to kind of train her now, and you know I have an editor and stuff also I've been working with for a while, but starting to delegate those tasks. I'm like, how did I do everything myself before? Like literally. How? Yeah, how did I do that?
I literally tell him all the time, like you're such a blessing. Like I'm so happy to work with him, and it's. Not only do we work great together, we just kind of understand each other. And we have this thing where, you know, he'll be like, hey, how are you on 10 today? And I'm like, I'm at a 2, not going to lie.
That's a good question. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of how we go about things. Like, hey, like, where are you at today? Like, are you good? Oh, no, I'm a 5 on 10. Like, I'm going to need you to pick up the pace today. Cool. Or, hey, I'm 10 on 10. Give me anything you need.
Yeah,
you know, so like, we
super
kind of
important
like,
to have that open dialogue too.
100%. And like, I'm just like, man.
Otherwise you're living off expectations and you don't actually know how that other person's feeling. You're like, why the fuck didn't you do this? And you're like, because I just wasn't there today. Like, sorry. And then
exactly.
Yeah.
No, we have great communication with stuff like that, and it's just nice to see the power of teamwork. Like really, like I'm getting so much more done in my days, and not as scared to take a day off because I know, hey, Shay, I need the day today. He can handle it, and then I'll return the favor type thing. So
you can almost, to a certain degree, depending on what he prefers to do versus what you prefer to do, you can almost lean into more of the things that you actually enjoy doing and kind of delegate out the stuff that you're like, I don't really want to do that.
That's literally what we do. Yeah. Like, we'll just like, we never even, weirdly enough, never even really had like a formal talk about that. It just happened where like, he was like, oh yeah, I'm going to keep doing this. And I was like, yeah, I got this stuff. Don't worry about it. And it just worked out great. So yeah, I'm really happy working with Shay. It's been a great experience and hopefully something that we keep doing for the long run. So
yeah. Do you think it's kind of relating to the audience out there? Do you think it's a smart move for people who are earlier in their careers just try and work for a company or starting their own thing, since you've kind of did a mixture of both?
Yeah, man, I don't even know how to answer that. I think it depends on the person. The reason I really wanted to start like my own thing too was I had a certain way that I wanted to do things. I went
back to
into it.
OCD perfectionism type mindset. It very much that way. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
You know, and I wanted to take the time to learn. I didn't want to feel rushed. I didn't want to feel this pressure of like, you need to know this by like tomorrow. And I wanted to take my time to understand it fully and to like really learn the way that I wanted to learn. Since day one of the reasons I even started a company or decided like, yes, for management was not only to help others with their music stuff, but mental health stuff is so important to me. And it is not catered to enough in our industry, unfortunately. And like, listen, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm sure a lot of other companies have the same mentality and like focus on that. But I just like didn't know any companies who put mental health of artists first at the time. And I was like, I want to be that person.
And it's definitely grown a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think it just depends what the goals are. Like if you're looking for mentors and looking to get support from someone and like starting maybe like intern level and whatnot, then definitely going to another company could be beneficial. If you are great at learning by yourself, though, it's totally doable. And like, why not? You know? So yeah, I think it really just depends like what your goals are, who you are as a person, how you enjoy to learn. But I think there's no right answer to that. Like whether you go with a company or do it yourself, it's really just depending on what you're looking to do.
Are either of your parents, I don't know how your relationship is with them, but are either of your parents entrepreneurs or on their own businesses or anything like that? Or anyone in your family for that matter?
I don't really speak with my father anymore, but I think like he's doing like his own like thing in hockey and whatnot. I'm pretty sure he started like a hockey program. But yeah, no, my mom's been working for the same company for years and years. And funny enough, she really hates music. So
what?
That's all, yeah.
How did you go into mute? What?
Literally, my whole family doesn't understand. They're like weird. Like no one was like musically inclined around me other than my neighbors growing up. And maybe like from them, because I did spend a lot of time with them. Like she's still my best friend to this day since I'm 3 years old. And they're very like a musical household. Like someone's always playing guitar, piano, or singing, and their voices are incredible. So I was around it to a certain extent, but no one listens to music really. Like my mom used to tell me like, turn it down, like turn the radio off. Like she did not enjoy listening to music. And I actually brought her to a concert for her birthday because she does enjoy some stuff like Celine Dion, Shania Twain, stuff like that. So I brought her to a Shania Twain concert and I was like, here, like, happy birthday. And I was like, how'd you find it? She's like, I could have just listened to this on the radio. And I was like, Mom, it's like, it's not the same. She's like,
you
no.
don't get it then, yeah.
She was like, no, it was nice, you know, Stephanie, but I don't know. It's very loud. And today she's asking me for tickets to go see Pink. So I don't know. Maybe I'm changing her. Who knows?
That's funny. A little bit of influence on mom there.
Maybe. Who knows? I would love for her to enjoy it, you know, but I got my stepdad who wants to come see a dubstep show soon, so that should be fun. Yeah.
There you go. I want to talk about one more kind of topic before we wrap up, but I know one thing that we brought up previously was, and a thing that, you know, all managers really have to go through is parting ways with their artists. And I know you've had to do that a few times throughout your journey with some of the names that you brought up, if you no longer work with anymore. Can you talk about just kind of like what maybe some of the reasons are for why that, you know, wouldn't, a relationship with an artist or, you know, working with a specific artist wouldn't last like the long-term run, or like why you've gone certain ways and parted certain ways from certain artists?
I mean, everyone is different. There's no experience like the other, but I think it's just about being realistic. If you're working with someone for X amount of time and there is no progress, you could try adapting your methods, you could try to see if something else is working, but sometimes it's just that it doesn't work between the artist and the manager. It's not even personal most of the time. Like oftentimes it just, they either feel like someone could benefit them more, or even sometimes I feel like someone else could, there have been people or brands that I've worked with that I adored, but I knew I couldn't do more for. I was just kind of stuck. I had no more ideas. I had no more inspiration for the project. And I knew maybe someone else who could help more than I could. And to me, it's unfair to keep someone, like depending what, it doesn't even matter what side, as the artist, as the manager, whatever it is, but keeping someone just out of like wanting to have that person under your roster, to me, is not fair. If you don't feel like you could benefit that person anymore, if they're not bringing anything back, like it has to be an equal playing field too. So it's never an easy decision.
It's almost like a normal relationship, kind of like you can't have a relationship that's just one-sided. Like you can't have a client manager experience the same way. Yeah.
You're literally spending like every day talking to these people. You know what I mean? So like I talk to my artists on the daily, like whether it be in our like Discord, which is business chats, or they'll hit me on the side on Facebook, be like, yo, let's get on a call, So you really need to get along with the people on your team, but you have to be able to be realistic and open. If I run out of ideas, if I'm at a point where things aren't working, if I'm seeing there's no progress, why would I hold on to something if we're not getting anywhere? Like maybe it's my methods aren't working. Maybe, the team atmosphere here just isn't it. And I've seen it, like for example, with Jordan, I've talked about this in another podcast. There was a lot of reasons, like there was just like, again, the time change that's when I was adapting to working in PST time. I was freaking out having to work till 8 p.m. and I was already working a full-time job at the time. So I just felt like all I was doing was working. So I wasn't catering to him as much. And he was blowing up way faster than I could help him. I was still way too fresh. There was a lot I didn't know. And we parted ways and like, it blew up. Like he's crushing it now. And I'm so happy we did that because he had the opportunity.
Doing tours. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying,
now.
He's crushing it. So it was beneficial, and the best part is he's still one of my best friends. I still talk to him all the time. When he has shows in Montreal, he invites me to come out and help him do some tour management stuff for him, which is great. But again, we had to be realistic. Like I couldn't help. So why would I hold on to something when I knew he could benefit from something else? And it actually benefited me. It gave me a kick in the ass to learn a little bit faster and a little bit more stuff that I didn't know I even had to know.
Right. Yeah. I can tell. And, you have to have this attribute, I think, being a manager, but I can really tell that you like take the time to develop that relationship first with your artist before you even like talk about business. Where did you kind of get that idea from, or why do you do things that way? I think it's the proper way in my opinion, but
I mean, maybe I don't really know. I've never really thought of that. It could be just from like how I got into the music industry, having a friend who told me, hey, help me out. And we already had that friendly basis. And then the other two that I signed after were also close friends of mine, which, it's like a blessing and a curse being close with your artist beforehand, especially because a lot of people really struggle to separate business and pleasure. So that was something that I had to.
It's hard to do in this industry because a lot of your business relationships are friendships too.
100%. And that's totally okay. But sometimes I, had to put the manager hat on, and those are harder conversations to have. So we found ways that worked for us to kind of separate that, where I think I said it before, like Discord or WhatsApp, depending on who uses what. But those are the apps where like you could talk business to me. If you are talking to business to me by text message, depending on the person, obviously, or on Facebook Messenger or something, I ain't answering it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I would tell them, I'm like, this is where we chat as friends. Like, this is where, like, if you need me as a friend or you want to, I'm like, if not, that I'm checking the other platforms. And it helps me keep track of, like, what we're talking about, too. Because if not, everything gets, like, so lost.
That's smart, dividing it up in between work conversations and actually physically separating it by app. That's genius.
Yeah, and we even have, like, on the Discord, like, we have a channel that, some of them have asked for, like, a channel that's just, like, fun or personal or whatever, where we just, like, shoot the shit.
But even that, it's still separated by channel. Yeah.
and I think it has to be, because it's so easy for them to be like, oh, why are you upset? Why are you talking? And I'm like, this is work. I'm just giving you your tasks, telling you what to do. I know you're chatting to me on the side on another app. Let me get back to you as a friend in a few seconds. You know what I mean? So But it's been great. Like I find it easier to work with someone if you get along with them. You know what I mean? Like if I already know that I enjoy talking to you, I enjoy your presence, I enjoy spending time with you, I'm going to spend almost every day talking to you, right? So if I don't get along with you or don't resonate with you as a person, it's going to be hard for me to enjoy my job at the end of the day. And I want to keep enjoying it. And I like finding people who have like similar mentality in terms of like the direction they're heading, people who are very passionate, inspired, people who have big goals, you know, people who are motivated to do the work because, you know, sometimes that happens. People lose motivation. People aren't willing to put in the same amount of effort. And that's where there's like a huge, it makes it just difficult. Like I never want to feel, I always try to like do more work as much as I can. So I like feeling that whoever's on my team is putting in as much as I am so that it's an equal playing field and we're both putting the efforts or whoever's involved. But yeah, it's great, but it's hard sometimes being friends with people, especially when it comes to letting people go. That's never easy, but I've been really fortunate to, you know, have a bunch of great people that I've worked with and who are still friends to this day. So
that's awesome.
Very thankful for that.
What advice would you give to someone who maybe earlier in their career who are, you know, finding their first manager or vice versa, is finding some of their first artists and they might be struggling with keeping their business stuff and personal stuff separate? What advice would you give to them?
It's not a race. Like you don't have to know everything right now. You don't have to do the next big thing right now. Sometimes taking a step back and reanalyzing things and taking things slow will actually be of benefit. The other thing is not to be scared to ask questions. I think they think it's so taboo and they like, oh, I'm going to look so dumb for not knowing this. Like, I didn't know half of these things for sure at one point. You know what I mean? Like, I started off just raving and enjoying the rave scene. Like, someone once told me, hey, did you advance the show? When I first started, I was like, do what? They were like, advance the show. And I'm like, the hell is an advance? Like, what are you talking to me about? You know? And then I went on Google, like, what's an advance for a show? And that didn't help me. They were like, oh, you know, and I was like, what do I do here? So
yeah, Google doesn't know shit about music. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I mean, yeah, you know, so luckily, like I had people, you know, I had like these group chats on Twitter and stuff that I could be like, hey, could someone help me? But it took me weeks to actually just ask about it because I was so scared to look dumb. And I was so scared that people weren't going to take me as seriously.
The faster you fail, the faster you look dumb, the faster you're going to learn and not be dumb anymore. So
and I think that's the thing is like people have this fear of like being judged. And there's always bad apples, don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, when people ask me questions, I love it. I'm like, wow, someone who actually is taking the time to learn and to learn properly and to like adapt from their mistakes, right? Like I'm always happy to help people. I still have my previous intern, Erica, who like hit me up on the side. Hey, I have a quick question.
I know her.
Yeah, she's great.
She manages Caslo.
Exactly. They're crushing it too. So it's been so cool to see her progress since she started with me, like just doing 1 year of internship together and then just seeing her like just go on, do her thing. I'm so proud. But yeah, it's just, I think people are just, they have this like fear of, I don't want to ask. I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm doing, but that's how you're going to learn. And if you're scared of asking, you're not going to get very far. In my opinion, honestly. So.
Well, Steph, thank you so much for your time today. We're going to start wrapping up. But before we head out of here, what are some of your goals for, you know, the Q4 now that we're in it and then, you know, into next year? What are some things that you got coming up?
I want to travel more. That's for sure. Definitely hoping to hop on a visa to be able to actually work out of the States and maybe whether it be hopping on a tour, just doing a few stops, but being able to actually do the work that I want to do out there would be great. Lots of new music coming from the team, so I'm super stoked on that. Some Q4, some Q1 of next year, so that's going to be awesome. And then hopefully that whole clothing line comes to fruition sooner than later. So I'll definitely let you know when that's happening.
Yes, please. I will buy.
Hell
please
yeah.
Let me know.
Yay. One sail down. Let's go.
Right. Where can the listeners find you and, you know, keep up to date with everything you got going on?
Yeah, social media. My name is the Steph Land, pretty much on all social platforms. So my Instagram has all my company links, my artist links, where you could find all the info about them, about the companies I work for. So social media, definitely. Instagram being where the most of the information is.
Sweet. Awesome. And I'm sure you've listened to the show in the past. So my famous final question, if there was one piece of advice you could give yourself when you first started your journey with SBT and started managing artists, what would that be?
Stop being scared. Just do it and have fun with it.
Yeah, love that. Awesome. Thank you so much again.
Thank you. Have a good one.